Hey parents, I wanted to give you a quick heads up on this podcast. There's a couple topics and stories that are brought up, and there's some very real and raw emotion that's coming from Susan as well. In one of the things that she shares. And I just wanted to make sure that you knew that in advance, because I don't want that to come as a surprise. I don't want it to, just show up and hurt you in any way or just be caught off guard. So if you are very sensitive to this type of subject, I want you to know that it's coming. It's an amazing conversation with Susan that's coming up. Welcome to Talk It Up, a Christian parenting podcast where our goal is to discuss 21st century topics to help you raise your kids. Hey, welcome to Talk It Up, a Christian parenting podcast where we help parents navigate parenting in the 21st century. My name is Matt Lake. I'm the executive director here at Mount Bethel Church, and super excited that you've decided to tune back in. I'm very excited about our guests today, and I would like to introduce them very quickly, and then I'm going to tell you why our guests are on right after I do that. But the first person we have is Ellie Lee. Ellie is our middle school leader here at Mount Bethel.
Hey there, how's it going? I'm glad to be here on the podcast today. We're gonna have a lot of fun.
We are gonna have fun, and our big guest that we have is coming live from Mississippi. Her name is Susan Eaton, and she is the author of the book "You're Gonna Be Okay." Hi, Susan.
Hey there.
Very excited that you decided to join us today. And it's all around this. It's all around how we can help parents navigate anxiety, mental health, depression, and other mental things that go on in their kids. And Susan's authored this book, You're Gonna Be Okay, and it's about truth, practices, and encouragement to give you hope when you feel hopeless. So we are very excited to jump into that. And here's why. If you're a parent, you already know this, but we've done a little research, and depression and mental health and anxiety are on the rise, and there's no doubt that that's going to be the case. But the Pew Research Center actually says that 7 in 10 teens today see anxiety and depression as major problems among their peers. And so when you're looking at and thinking about 70% of kids growing up today see anxiety and depression as a problem just among their friend groups, among the people that they hang out with, and we're at 70%. This is a conversation that we have to have. This is a conversation we should have inside the church, outside of the church. And the great part is we have experts like Susan that have written such an amazing book. And Ellie, I'm actually going to turn it over to you because you guys have a long history, you and Susan.
So Susan, she's been in my life for 25 years. She was my youth minister when I was a senior in high school. And she has offered me a first opportunity to serve in ministry as an intern way back when, just a few years ago. And so a lot of...
a few years ago.
Just a few years ago. A lot of my call and me understanding who God made me to be, Susan helped me kind of navigate through that a long time ago. And so she is a friend and a mentor still today. And I love her dearly. And she's the person I look up to. She's about 5'2". She's sitting down right now. You can't see her, but she's the person.
Hey, I'm 5'4". Come on now.
You've grown.
I've got heels on today. So I'm a good 5'5", 5'6". So, yeah.
So you're good. Never mind. I take it back. She's a lot taller than she used to be. But Susan is, she's just been a light and helped me navigate things in ministry and life. And so I'm excited that she's here today. I feel like I'm introducing an old friend to new friends, and that's what I feel like today is all about. And so Susan is one of the pastors at Parkway Heights in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and I'm going to let her tell a little bit about her ministry, her family, all those things before we jump into the book.
Awesome.
Okay?
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. It's such an honor and a blessing to have been asked and invited to be with you guys today. So thank you so much. My name is Susan Eaton. I'm an ordained clergywoman in the United Methodist Church. I received my Master of Divinity from Asbury Theological Seminary in Wilmore, Kentucky. My husband received his master's in counseling from Asbury as well. So I went first, and then he went after that. So we had 8 years invested at Asbury, and then we spent a total of 16 years in Kentucky. Me doing seminary and youth ministry, and Stuart doing seminary, and working various jobs while I was in school, and then after that in various clinical settings, hospitals and such. But we have been in Mississippi now for almost 12 years. Both of us are from Mississippi, but we've been back in our home state for the past 12 years. Stuart's background, like I said, is as a therapist. He actually worked at Cincinnati Children's Hospital on the behavioral health unit with the adolescent, like children to 17-year-olds, I suppose, there in Cincinnati. Got a lot of great experience there. He also did some outpatient work while we were in the Cincinnati area. And then since coming to Hattiesburg, he worked again with an inpatient program. It was actually a sexual addiction program here in Hattiesburg. And it was actually the first one, I think, the big one in the country. And now there's another one. It's pretty prominent place here in Hattiesburg. But now he's back to working in outpatient on the coast in Gulfport, Mississippi at the CB base, which is a Navy base. So he works with Navy men and women and their families to provide counseling services. I am one of the associate pastors here at Parkway Heights, discipleship pastor. So everything discipleship related. So that's helping people understand the Word of God, practice discipleship in their lives, come together in small groups, community, special worship services, spiritual formation events, all of those kinds of things. So I think I've got the best job in the world, because I also still get to work with our youth ministry. Even though I'm not the youth minister, I work with college age students. And so I guess I've been in youth ministry now. I'm going to tell on my age for 31 years. I've been involved in youth ministry in one way or another. So that's a little bit about me.
That's awesome. And being in youth ministry means that you're also engaged with parents on a very deep level, because
Yes.
they care about their kids. And so you've written this book. You're going to be okay. And so you and your husband, you guys were the co-writers of it. And not to jump in and ask questions over you, Ellie, but why write the book?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the seed for this kind of resource was planted, sometime in early 2019. I had a mother and her daughter come and meet with me. And the mom and the daughter were interested in getting my take on the daughter's anxiety issues. And during the course of that conversation, it really came to light that mom had a lot of anxiety issues that were impacting the daughter and creating some of her anxiety issues. But what I thought during that meeting was, I wish I had something that I could put in their hands that would help them both access things that I just knew up here, like breathing techniques and relaxation techniques, mindfulness techniques, access to scripture in just a really clear way, resources, understanding anxiety, what it is, depression, things like that. I thought I need a toolkit, and I didn't see a resource like that. They probably exist, but that's when the seed was planted. So if you fast forward then, September of 2019, our oldest came to us via our youth pastor and told me, I'm struggling. I'm struggling with depression and self-harm and severe anxiety. And it really came out of the blue. And so that began our journey, September of 2019. And so here I am, a pastor. I've been in youth ministry for so long. I'm married to a licensed professional counselor, and here our child is struggling in a very painful way. And we just went to what we knew, which was it still felt like navigating in the dark in so many ways, because you're just not ever prepared really to do that with your child. And so what I did was just go to the thing that I knew the most. I started writing notes. And like I would put scripture reference, and I would just write something brief that was like, here's something true about God today. Here's something true about you today. Here's something you can do to help you when you feel anxious. Here's a breathing practice. So I started writing these notes. And so the devotional portion of this book, most of that is based on the notes that I wrote during that time. To encourage my own child through his struggle. And I did get permission to put this in a book. One of my main timeline goals was to have it as a book, as a resource to put in his hand before he went off to college. He was 17 years old when this struggle started. And we started doing breathing techniques together. There were many evenings when I was up there just helping him breathe, helping him calm his mind and just to say true things, things like that. So the book came out of just really what Stuart and I were doing to help our child, and the wisdom that Stuart had as a therapist, and what I brought to the table from working with young people and their families for so long, and just doing our best to put in front of our child and hold there what we thought could be most helpful during that. And so really we realized, gosh, we have so much at our disposal, so much resource here and knowledge. And what do parents do that don't feel comfortable accessing scripture? What do the parents do that haven't sat in therapy settings, that haven't seen some of this stuff to know, a little bit more of how to navigate it? I will say it is totally different when it is your own child, and you cannot be your own child's therapist. So, we'll just put that out there. But what we thought was what we had at our disposal, other people need. And we wanted other parents to feel empowered how to talk to their child, how to get into scripture with their child, how to pray with their child, how to open up the conversation, techniques for just relaxation and things like that. So it really just was what we needed and what we felt called to do for our child. And then what the Lord said, other people need this. You need to share this. And so that's what it is. It's simple on purpose. And we didn't try to reinvent the wheel. You may notice in the very back, there's like 2 or 3 pages of QR codes for professional, the stuff that Stuart has used with people in his therapy sessions. It's like, read that. The professionals have written this stuff down, but we wanted to give people access to a lot of that stuff too. So that's kind of how that came about. And it's been a real blessing to have put it out in the world.
I think it's really awesome how pastoral care and the mental health, they connect. They're different, but they connect. And so learning how to pray and have the scripture and that scriptural guidance is so important. And it is different than mental health care. And so learning how to breathe and cope, like those things are perfect. And so I've had this on my desk for several years. I've given it to several kids. Actually, one of my coworkers was walking by the other day and said, "Oh, I gave that book to my daughter or my son. I don't know." And I took one too. And I said, "Did I tell you about this?" And she said, "I don't think so. I think I just found it on the internet." Literally, it was an awesome, to know that marriage of pastoral care and mental health, scripture and mental health care, they're different, but they're so important together.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with that. I feel like there's this intersection of like truth in the scriptures and, how we are designed in the mental health aspect. And you are 100% right when it's your own kid and they come to you with this anxiety. I know that my wife and I have gone through that over the past few years with our son, and it is a struggle. And it's hard. And to have some of the things that you've written down in the book at your disposal, I got to say, I got to show it up because our people need to see it. If you don't have the book, it's a very easy read. It comes in a devotion, as Susan said, type format, where there is just different things, like a little daily that you can do. And there's very practical tips inside. And we'll get to a couple of those down at the end as well. But Susan, let me ask you a question. So, what is it about the adolescent years, in your opinion, really drives the anxiety that they feel, depression that they have, mental health? In your opinion, what would you say to that question? What is it about adolescent years that drives that right now?
Yeah. One of the realities of being an adolescent, and one of the challenges, it's both a reality and a challenge to being an adolescent, is that they feel a lot of things, and what they feel really big. So that can be an adventurous kind of thing, and it can also become a reason to be really self-conscious. A friendship breaks up and you feel all of that really big, and it might be the first time you've experienced some sort of loss of friendship, right? And so they are learning how to have relationships. They're trying to figure out their own identity. They're trying to figure out how they fit in the world, where they fit in the world, where they fit in the friend groups that maybe they've had since they were little bitty. Kids that live in the same place a long time, they've got friends they went to preschool with and elementary with, and all of a sudden they hit middle school and things start changing. Friend groups start changing. There's a fight, there's a loss, and they're navigating all of that. So
Right.
They've got this cascade of hormones that's kicking in at that time as well. And their bodies are growing and changing. They've got all these feelings that they haven't experienced before necessarily. And so they're trying to navigate all of that. Not to mention the expectations that are placed on kids. Stuart and I talk a lot about how kids are so overscheduled. They barely have time to slow down and just breathe and just be. Young kids, when I was growing up, my life was full of free play. I came home from school, I hopped on my bicycle, my friend and I, we rode all over our little town. And that's also a perk of living in a very small town like I did. You can't do that as much in larger cities. And but the kids are just overscheduled, and they don't have a lot of just space anymore. There's a lot of expectations school-wise. How am I gonna get that scholarship? They're already thinking about college by the time they're 8th graders or 9th graders. And I just think all of those are reasons, plus so many more, of why we're seeing that rise of depression and anxiety. Good grief, do we even need to mention social media? I guess we do. I hate to sound like, beating that dead horse, but that is a huge thing. They're learning, am I valuable based on how many views a reel gets, or how many views their story gets, or how many likes compared to somebody else? Do I measure up? Am I enough? And there's a very strong link between time spent on social media and whether teenagers experience self-harm, whether they're experiencing depression and anxiety. There's a strong correlation there. More time spent, the higher percentage, higher likelihood that those kids are to experience those things. So I think it's just a time of a lot of change.
Yeah.
They are navigating so many new things, and they have so much more access to the world now than we did, when we were that age. So
Absolutely. You said something that we talk a lot about, is that they start to find their value in their social accounts or their friendships or whatever that might be. And that's a hard thing as a teenager, is when you're looking for your value inside of a social account and how many people actually like what you did or what you said or what your video was and all of that kind of thing. So we talk about that a lot in youth ministry, and I'm sure you do as well, Susan. How can parents navigate that?
Oh gosh.
That's exactly right. I'm glad that you said, "Oh gosh," because I might as well ask it because I don't have the full answer. So we get smart people like you on here, and Ellie, you can answer as well. How do parents navigate when students, as hard as we try, they start to see their value in outside things that we very much can't control?
I don't know about you. For me, I just want to shut it all down. You guys just avoid it as long as you can. But their peers are telling them otherwise. And so, your value is not, we can say it till we're blue in the face. Right. It's not that. But if it's not from us, it's from their peers. And so, and that's
shutting it down creates an entire different issue and problem that teenagers face is they don't have what other people have, and then they become a little ostracized inside of that group. So that's an entirely different problem. So
how do we navigate that?
How do we navigate it?
Here's the thing. It's not going away.
Right.
It is a reality in our world. And so I know the reactionary response is like, cut them off, cut it off. And hey, you know what? Every parent has got to make that decision based on what they know about their child and things like that. So I don't want to give some sort of blanket, you have to do it this way. I think what is always important and what is always crucial is equipping our children to navigate that stuff in a wise way. What is really true? Here's a bigger truth. Here's a greater reality. And look, while they're young, we do need to limit their time spent on their devices. And when they're young, you can do that. Once they get older, you've got less and less ability to do that, so let them set your boundary the way you feel you need to set your boundary. I would recommend hey, where you can put that phone away for a certain amount of time and limit access to that and encourage doing other things that don't involve being online. I say that in the book, in some of the readings, like do something outside, do a physical activity, go meet up with a friend in real life, have an actual conversation, things like that. But it is the world and it's not going away. And so how can we give them tools and skills to learn how to monitor themselves, and how do we do that for them, before they get to the space where they can do it? I don't have a clear-cut answer, but I do know that I want to teach my child in all the various things that they're going to encounter in this world. How do I make a wise decision when I face this? How am I going to think about myself and what's true about me in this situation when I encounter this experience?
Yeah.
And I think building up their toolkit and their ability to think for themselves and navigate those things themselves is going to be better than just pretending like we can just cut them off from it, because it's there and they're going to find a way to access it. I think so.
Susan, one of the things that you said is that every child is different. And so a blanket statement that happens in my house would be different from what happens in your house or anyone else's house. And so knowing, and even in the house, you might have two kids that are completely different. And so one thing you do for one is different from the other one. And so it's looking at each kid individually. And it may not be the fair thing in their eyes, but it might be the right thing if it's right for one kid, and it might be something different for the other kid.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So go ahead.
No, fire away.
So when we have seen, and this is a thing that I hear, anxiety is a big word, right? Everybody's got anxiety. What's the difference between having anxiety and just an emotion, a strong emotion, or a big feeling, as you said?
Yeah. No, I think that's important to note that, look, everybody experiences anxiety at some point in their life, in different levels. Okay. To define anxiety is when you're having a fear response to a situation that's not reality. Okay. So at fight, flight, or freeze are our, natural emotions, and responses to fear or an anxious situation, right? When we face a danger, a true danger of some sort. And that kept us alive as people for a really long time when, that saber-toothed tiger is out there and it's going to jump on us, right? You've got to be able to sense danger, and you've got to be able to either get out of there or stop moving or whatever. What happens with anxiety is that we're feeling like there's a danger that's real when it's not. It's an imagined danger, right? So anxiety says you are in danger and you better freak out, or you better run away, or you better start fighting, or you better isolate and hide, whatever it is, but it's not necessarily a real danger. Okay. So stress is a real thing. Being anxious is a real thing that everyone experiences. And to learn how to, calm yourself down and retrain your brain in terms of how you think about stressful situations can really help when you are struggling with anxiety. If you get caught in those kinds of mental cycles of everybody ends up blowing up and dying at the end of every stressful situation, those scenarios you start imagining in your head, that's just going to fuel that. So anxiety on that level can totally be helped and treated by just things you can do yourself, remembering what's true about God, who he says you are, breathing, just a simple breathing practice helps your brain, start calming down and stop releasing those kinds of adrenaline hormones and the cortisol that's going to really keep you so anxious and upset. And so there are those simple kinds of practices that you can do to get out of those situations. But then there's also anxiety disorders that stuff can help, and that's a good tool. But someone with an anxiety disorder, what you'll notice, and this is what I would suggest parents be looking for, your child has been struggling with ongoing anxiety for a long period of time. It's really starting to affect their daily life. So their school, they can't focus on school. Their grades are dropping. Their sleep patterns are changing. So maybe they're sleeping way too much, which is also a key sign of depression. You're sleeping way more than normal, or you can't sleep at all, or you're really having trouble going to sleep. There's just all sorts of things when there's a disorder that it's like your brain can't really get into that space of being calm enough for some of these practices and coping techniques that a good therapist can lead you toward, can help. And so, everybody experiences anxiety, but not everybody has an anxiety disorder. And so for parents, I would just suggest, if your child comes to you and expresses that they're struggling with anxious thoughts, depressive thoughts, just believe them. Honor what they're saying is their experience, and don't try to decide yourself whether that's just simple anxiety everybody deals with, or it's a disorder or not. Take them somewhere where they can have a safe place and a safe, wise counselor to listen to them, to talk things out, and give them the tools that they need. And that's what this book is, to help parents be able to do that too. But sometimes you just need somebody outside the family unit, someone who's trained in this area to help your child do that. And they'll be able to tell whether more help is needed. If there's, an anxiety disorder going on, and some medication coupled with therapy would be more helpful than just therapy alone or things like that. So I hope that answered your question.
You did. You answered. One of the things you said was, if your child comes to you, what if your child doesn't want to come and talk to you? How do you encourage a parent whose child is kind of becoming reclusive and not very open about this? How do you encourage a parent to foster and to be able to foster a conversation to help their child if their child's not open about coming and saying that they're struggling?
Yeah, no, that's such a great question, because really it's not every situation where your child comes to you and says, I feel this way and I need help. And so in our situation, our child did do that. But also, one of the reasons I think we didn't notice it was because we have a very introverted, shy child and loved time spent alone. And it's funny how I when I look back, it's like I did notice a change there. I did notice that the time spent in the room with the door closed and, was increasing. That conversation with us and telling us about things that he just enjoyed and was interested in, that also decreased. But we just sort of thought, well, maybe. I remember asking Stuart, I was like, do you think everything's okay? And he's like, I think that he's just introverted. Well, then it turns out he was really, really struggling. And so what I learned from that and what I started doing as soon as I knew what I knew, I knocked on that door every day. There was not a day that I came home that I didn't go up there and I didn't check in and I didn't say, let's talk. And I engaged purposefully with my child. I talked about things that he liked. I would play video games that I hated and I had no interest in. I would watch TV shows that I had no interest in and I never would have watched before. But he liked it. And I was trying to increase engagement with my child. So what I found was that in those moments of just being more present and engaging and just building relationship, naturally things would come up in conversation. There would be these little opportunities to say, how you doing? How you feel about this? Or that he would bring things up. And so, I would just say for parents, like, it is so tiring and it is so difficult emotionally and spiritually and physically when your child is struggling. And it is so tempting to just be like, okay, good, everything's quiet. I'm so tired. I'm just going to binge something on Netflix, or I'm just going to get on my phone and I'm just going to hang out here. It's harder to go enter into somebody else's darkness, even when it's your own child. It is so much harder. But there were times that when I knocked on that door and I wouldn't get a response, and I always knocked and I always alerted, I'm about to come in. I'm coming in this room, and the door would be locked, but I figured out how to unlock it on my own. And I would go in and look. There were times when I found my child on the floor, curled up in a ball, sweating and just in a pit of despair, curled up in the bed, covers over his head. I pulled knives out from under pillows. I tended the wounds that my own child inflicted on himself. But if I hadn't gone in there, if I hadn't been there to pick him up off the floor, to hold him in my arms, to speak what was true, I would have, first of all, I don't know what could have happened to my child. But secondly, the opportunities I would have missed to be there with him in the darkest, deepest, most painful spaces. Now, he had no clue how to get out of that. He didn't know why he was struggling so much. He didn't know how to communicate that. But I was just there. I just came in there, and it was hard. It was hard, y'all. I mean, it's been a 4-year journey, and we're out of that really scary space where I was not comfortable leaving the house and leaving him home alone. We went through that. I mean, it was really scary at times. We went through hospitalization because he stopped eating. There were just so many things that we went through. And so you just want to pay attention as much as you can, listen for little things, and you've got to give yourself grace when you miss stuff. You got to give yourself grace when they say they're fine and you believe them, but they're really not. We don't know how to do this. Nobody has kids and goes, I know exactly how I'm going to navigate it when they are an emotional and mental mess. we don't often know how to navigate ourselves when we are in emotional and
That's
mental
true.
mess.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
And
right.
so I would also say to parents, just give yourself grace and know that you're not supposed to know. Like, you're not supposed to be an expert in this, but you can be present and you can listen, and you can just hold your child and remind them what's true about them, and that you're not going anywhere, and you can be the advocate for your child that they need. And it's hard. Finding a therapist can really be hard. That was one of the biggest challenges my husband and I face, and he is a therapist, and you think how it should be easy. It's like, not everybody's a good fit. Not everybody seems to be as skilled or equipped to deal with what your child's dealing with. Just there's lots of things. And I would just say, keep pressing on, keep doing it, which means you've got to cover yourself in prayer. You've got to take care of yourself. You've got to find a therapist for yourself, because you don't know all the emotions and all the feelings that are going to come up inside of you. You want to be able to get a handle on that, so that you can continue to be the advocate and comfort and help that your child needs.
Susan, thank you for that. That is hard. And
Yeah, thanks for sharing that with us. Obviously, that's not a great spot in the life of your child, but to have such raw emotion still with it and to share that with us is it's incredible. And I love the picture that as you walked through it, the first step that you talked about was believing them. Mm-hmm. That if they come to you and they feel like they have this, is believing them, and then stepping into the situations that you might not feel equipped or comfortable stepping into, but just actually, trying to be involved in those types of conversations over and over and over and over again, allowed you and, your child to actually be able to have conversations around the anxiety or the depression. And that led, eventually, it can lead to healing. And so, yeah, thank you again for sharing that. That's very awesome.
And even the conversation doesn't happen sitting across a table or at dinner. It might happen while you're playing Fortnite together. And that's
right.
That's, I think, an important thing for us as parents,
yep.
adults, to know that the conversation doesn't need to happen on our terms,
right.
but on the kids' terms. And so if that's watching a video or playing a video game or watching a movie or shooting basketball or doing
right.
painting or building Legos or doing whatever they love, that's a great place to have that conversation. Not sitting across the table, tell me how you're feeling. That's not
right.
the way to have that conversation.
Absolutely.
They're going to feel interrogated. They're going to feel like, wait, what's going on here? But if you just have that natural relationship, you're present and you're listening. And yeah, going back to that, believe your kid when they tell you what they're feeling. Look, the things that our kids go through may or may not be anything we have ever experienced. And just because we haven't experienced it and just because we don't understand it doesn't mean it's not a very real experience for your child. And I think that's one of the reasons why they don't share things, is that maybe they think they're not going to be believed, or maybe they think they're going to be told it's wrong to feel the way they feel. To have done some of the things that they've done when they feel the way they feel. And so for the parent, the home should be the safest place your kid has. And so for the parent to just loosen the grip of control over your child's life is another important thing. To accept them where they are as they are, and to love them no matter what they're bringing to the table is what the Lord taught me was my most important thing that I needed to do as mom. Sure, I need to be an advocate. Absolutely, I need to listen. But loving my child and accepting my child as is was number one. I'm not the therapist for my child. I let someone else do that. I'm the safe place. I'm the one they know that no matter what you say to me, nothing changes the fact that you are loved by me. And I become a representative of God's love for them? If I tell them God loves them unconditionally and they're safe with God, and yet they're not even safe unconditionally with me, what does that communicate? And I also think that's an important message for the church, to love our kids where they are, as they are, and also help them find the resources they need to get the therapy that they need to help very real anxiety and very real depression that they're going to. But they got to know they're loved.
For a parent who is afraid of finding a counselor, doesn't know how to find a counselor or a therapist, what would you say would be some steps to make sure you're finding the right one? Because you said not every parent, not every counselor, not every therapist is the right fit. How do you know how to find the right fit for a therapist?
Well, I think you start by asking, other people, like, go to the church, right? So a lot of people come to me and they say, this is what's going on. And I'm able to give them names of people that either Stuart is familiar with. He knows them, he knows their practice, he knows their personality, or I am, just from, by nature of doing what we do, we know these things. So I would say go to people who probably have access to that information and see who they recommend. It might even be that another family whose child has gone through something similar, has been in therapy. Who did they see? Would they share that with you? What was that experience like? So those are a couple ways you can start instead of just flying blind on it. But again, every child's different. And so it may not be a match. You've got to be willing to, I would say, talk to your child. How did you experience that? And encourage them that, hey, it might take more than one session to really even know if you like that. Maybe they just don't want to do it at all at first, and they just need a couple more times to know if it's a good fit. But you do want to listen to your child, and you want to, when they're younger, I think you can even sit in on those things, and you've got a lot more space to be able to go in with your child and be a part of conversations. Listen, this started when our child was 17. Let's see, October, November, December, January, 7 months before he turned 18. And I will tell you, everything changes once they turn 18. That you have to have permission from your child to know what's going on in a therapy session. Your child needs to make the appointments. They don't want the parents making the appointment anymore once they turn 18. And it was just like, but my child is not really adulting right now. But so that was hard too. So not to scare anybody, but there's ways, if you've developed that relationship with your child, they're more than likely going to be like, yes, I'll give you permission to talk to my therapist or have access to that. And we've even requested, even now, he's 22, even now, hey, can we do a group session, me, you, and Dad, with your therapist? We have some goals, and we've got some things we want to be sure that she knows about. Would that be okay with you if we come? Sure. Yeah, let's set that up. And so, yeah. But you start with people who know. Start with people who maybe had the experience and see what they know about people, and then just be willing to stick with it. When if it's not a good fit at first, to keep trying.
No, I think that's really good. Looking where I know people contact me all the time. Can you talk to my student? And I think, you kind of said something similar. You're a pastor, right? People can come to us. We can help get them in the right direction. But if there's something that's serious going on, we aren't equipped to handle that. And so we are happy as a staff to help connect them to someone else. But I'm not equipped to be able to handle some of the things that are going on. I know, Matt, you're not. Susan, you're saying you're not, and you've been through a lot of it. You know how to connect them with somebody who has a more specialized ability to care for that
That's
child.
right. And that's one of the great things as a local church, your connection to a local church and the pastors on staff at that local church, is we can help you as a parent get to the right person, and we can continue on the path with you. You don't have to do it alone. So wherever you are, wherever you're listening, connect with your local church on this, and this doesn't have to be just a you only struggle. And that's the biggest thing. And why a resource like your book, Susan, and the pastors in a local church are so valuable to parents who have children going through anxiety and depression is you don't have to run it alone. This isn't an alone thing. And so use the resources around you. If you're local to Mount Bethel, we'd love for you to contact us. We can certainly help you with this and get you on the right path and in the right location. But the book is a great start. So if this is just propping up, you have so many practical things in the book, and you talked about so many of those today. There's a section in the back that's titled "A Note to Parents." Let me read it all right. A note to parents of children struggling with depression, anxiety, or other mental health challenges. And you go through things like pray for your child, be a calming presence. There's one more on here, be aware, reach out, practice self-care. So these are all little practical tips that parents can start with, parents can use. And it's one of the great things about the books is this is something that people can pick up and they can start today reading one small little part. But the question I have after all of that, and the practical tips are so amazing in there, what encouragement can you give to parents who are maybe just starting this journey? Maybe they're in the middle of it. Maybe they're so far at the end and they've given up. Any part of the journey that they're in, because this exists more than we want it to exist, and parents are going through that now. What encouragement could you give to parents?
Well, the first one is kind of what you said. You don't have to go it alone. One of the things that I experienced is that I did feel very alone. I can remember thinking if my child had some sort of disease, I could go online and I could tell people, and somebody would do a GoFundMe, and people would be rallying around and praying. But when it's a mental health issue, when your child is struggling with self-harm, they've got identity issues, there's all sorts of stigma associated with these kinds of things. And, the way I felt was like, this is not just my story, it's my child's story, and it's my child's business. And I don't feel like I can really share that with a lot of other people. Add to that, the pandemic hit and shut everything down. And so, there was already this isolation going on. And so I would just say to parents, like, it's going to feel like you're very alone and you're going to be afraid to reach out. You might even be a little embarrassed that your child is struggling the way your child is. You might feel like you have failed in your parenting, that if you had done something better or more right, they wouldn't be struggling. But that just really is not the case. Sometimes you can do everything right, and your child is going to struggle in deep, deep ways. So first of all, you're not alone. So go ahead and reach out and allow someone to bear that burden with you. So go to a pastor, go to a trusted friend, find a therapist yourself, whatever you need to do to get some personal resource in that. So that's the first thing I would say. Also, I would just encourage parents to really pray. You're praying for your child, but what I experienced was, as I prayed regularly for my child to experience healing, the gracious thing the Lord did was he healed me. I still get emotional about it because I thought, well, I'm going to pray for this healing for my child. And the Lord knew that when my child started struggling, a part of me died. And I needed some resurrection healing in my own life. So prayer is crucial to be what supports you and undergirds you and holds you up. But it's not the only thing you can do. God has given us agency. He has given us these resources. So become that advocate, like we said earlier, that your child needs. And I would also encourage parents to normalize therapy. So I've got one child who has diagnosed pretty severe social anxiety and major depressive disorder, along with some things. So for one child, medication and therapy is a reality of life now. It's not going away. It's not going to be short term. My other child at 15 years old, I mean, you can imagine she was very aware of what was going on in the household, even though she didn't know exactly what was going on. It changes the dynamic in your home, right? And so now I've got this 15-year-old, 14, 15, when this all started, who is sensing that, but then also has friend drama and romantic drama and, just her own life of navigating being a 14-year-old and 15-year-old. And so what we did, I said, do you need to talk to somebody? And so she started seeing a counselor during that time. And now at 19 years old, she doesn't do that on a regular basis, but she'll come home sometimes and say, Mom, I need to go talk to Camille. And I'm like, cool, set that up, And so she has learned that therapy is a great way to just help myself recenter and kind of, get back where I need to be and not get out of control. So she can kind of see when she's feeling a little out of control, when she's experiencing anxiety and stress, she knows where to go. So just, I would say we've stigmatized some of this, but if we can just normalize it and, give our children the tools that they need, and ourselves the tools that we need, we're going to be a lot better off. So.
Absolutely. I believe that. One of the things that I feel has just kind of come up in our conversation today, at least from my point of view, is there's so many unhealthy things that can happen in a child's life right now. So whether it's social media or friendships or romantic relationships, and all of that can lead to some unhealthiness in their mental state. So I keep hearing, and maybe it's just me that I've heard it, is like this replace unhealthy with healthy. And so, for example, you talked about the social media, and there's some unhealthy things that can happen on social media. Well, hey, how do we dial that back a little bit and replace that with, hanging out with friends or just spending time with family? Then you talked about how there were some unhealthy things just mentally going on with your son, and you replaced that with spending time with him and just playing random video games, and it opened up conversation. And so this idea of believing your kids and replacing unhealthy with as healthy as you can make it on this journey of mental health, that's just what I've kind of taken from the conversation today, and maybe that's an encouragement for somebody, is just look at what healthy things you can come up with, and obviously reaching out to a local church or a pastor or getting a counselor is one of those healthy things that can take place. So your story is awesome, and I appreciate you being very open and honest and vulnerable in the conversation today, Susan. Ellie, what else?
I think about you saying, I didn't think he was okay, so I went and knocked every day.
Yeah.
That consistency, that showing up. When they're in their darkest moments, we show up. When they are having a good day, we show up. And so we show up, and we're consistent, and we're loving, and we're opening doors, both metaphorical and physical doors, to be able to build a relationship. And it might not look like it's on our terms. Right. It may look different because we're meeting them where they're at. And so I think that's something that kind of came to my mind today as you were speaking and talking about your family. So
yeah, absolutely.
And then also, I think too, knowing that we're kind of, lots of folks are going through this, and that doesn't make it easy, but it does mean that we can turn to our church, turn to our friends, and find the people who are going to support us and walk through this journey with us as we walk through our kids. I appreciate how you say, if that was a cancer diagnosis or some other physical diagnosis, it'd be easier to share. And so, but when it's mental health, it's a different challenge. Yep. And so for us to maintain the privacy of our children, but to have that support, I think that's an important thing for us, and that's a tough balance. But I appreciate you saying that, and still finding ways to get support for us as well.
Absolutely. Well, I know personally this has been an amazing conversation for me, and I know my wife is going to be excited to hear it as well, because this is something that we've navigated over the past few years with one of our sons. And so it exists everywhere more than we'd like it to exist. Susan, what final things would you like to say or share, or anything else before we get wrapped up?
Don't compare your kid. Don't compare your kid to somebody else's kid. Don't compare your kids to each other. Don't compare your child to your expectations of your child and the vision you thought your child was going to become. They are their own person, and it just, there they are. So when I compare them, somebody's going to come up short, and it's going to be them, it's going to be me, instead of just accepting, hey, this is my child, and this is our situation, and I didn't want this, and I'm doing everything I can for there to be healing in this situation, but I'm not going to compare my child to anybody else, or our family to anybody else's family. Gosh, adults get caught up in that social media comparison too. We look at everybody's highlight reel, and we know all of our bloopers and all the dirty stuff that goes on, and we compare what we know about ourselves to what we don't know about other people. We always lose. So don't do that.
You always lose. Yeah.
That acceptance piece was one of the biggest things the Lord worked with me on. It was, you can fight against the fact that this is happening all day long, and you will only continue to be miserable. You can tell me every day that you don't like this and that you want it to end, and every day it doesn't end, you will be more and more miserable. So I had to accept that that was reality, and this was the struggle we were in. And once I did that, the Lord also showed me that my child's struggle was not my identity. I think as parents, we place our identity and our worth even on whether or not our child is successful. And if they struggle and have a hard time, or if they fail in some way, we make it about us. And the Lord was like, you are not your child, and you are not your child's struggle. And you have a life to live, and there is joy for you to find and experience even now in the midst of this deep, dark time that you're going through as a parent. And so that was a huge lesson for me. And I think that when I learned that, I was able to start being that calming presence for my child, because now I wasn't trying to fix my kid, and I wasn't trying to make it end, and I wasn't trying to make them be somebody that they weren't. And, all of these kinds of stressful reactions that we will bring to the table. And so I would just add that in as well. It's like, when we can accept the way things are, and love our child and love ourselves, and remember not only what's true about our child, but what's true about ourselves, and what's true about God and what He's bringing to the table. I mean, let's not forget, God is at work. And even if it's a slow healing process, like I said, 4 years, we are 4 years into this, and we're still going. And we've learned so much, and we have so much joy in our home, even while things aren't perfect. We can get there. Oh man, we have learned such a huge lesson, because that's life. Man, everything does not go the way you want it all the time. And when we thrash against it, we are just miserable. And when we let the Lord in, and we trust Him in it, and we let Him define who we are, we're going to be a lot better off. So.
Absolutely.
That's so powerful, Susan. I got to say, I mean, you just, to have this idea as parents that our identity is not wrapped up in the good or the bad or the mental or whatever that is in our kids is so powerful. Is that what you taught when you talked about how through prayer, God was able to show you some things and allow you to step into the situation better? Is that what God showed you through prayer, is that your identity was not this?
Yes, okay. Absolutely. Because it is so normal as a parent to go, where did I fail? Oh my
Yeah,
goodness,
right.
what did I do wrong? How many times have I gone back in time to when my child was a third grader and having struggles, and we dealt with things the best we could then, but there were signs in third grade of these kinds of issues. And oh gosh, if I could go back in time, I would do this and I would do that. And the Lord was like, you have got to be kind to yourself. This is not your identity, and it just is, so be nice and be kind to yourself, and realize that you are you and your child is your child, and you know what I mean. Yeah, it was a huge thing for me, the acceptance piece, and not defining myself by my child's successes or struggles.
Yeah.
Huge. And I think if parents can do that, just because your child is winning all the things, that doesn't make you a better parent than somebody whose kid's struggling. We are all just, I've got one kid that's like, life is golden. I mean, she is just like, all the things are good and sunny, and it's all unicorns and flowers. And, it's always been like that. And then I've got the other one who struggles, and I'm the same parent. I'm the same parent. So, yeah, can I share one more thing? It might be a little too long. Y'all can edit
No, we're
it
good.
out.
Go ahead. I would love to hear it.
We're talking about prayer experiences. I would pray everywhere. And that's one of the things I say in that back section of the book. And here's a little fun fact about that section. I wrote that to myself.
Oh, wow.
I didn't actually write that to other people. I wrote that to me, what I felt like I needed to hear. And so I was praying in my car. I was listening to music and praying the words of those songs. I was praying scriptures. I was in the shower, letting water just like fall over me, and just, on the floor of my shower, just praying, knelt down. And during one of those prayer times, Mark 9, that story of the father that brings his son to Jesus, who's been mercilessly just tormented by a demon, it says, and he brings his child to the disciples, and they can't do anything. They can't heal this child. And Jesus comes on the scene, and Jesus just gave me this picture of him standing in authority over that situation. Like, Jesus comes in and he is authority. And it was like the picture paused. Like, I saw the whole thing acting out, and then it paused with that child on the ground and that father standing there just in torment over what his child was going through, and Jesus standing there in authority. And so that was what the Lord gave me for a long time, was like, I stand in authority over this situation. There is no power greater than me. And you need to remember that I am the one standing here, and I am greater. And so it stayed like that. I mean, I held on to that picture for so long. And then about a year and a half later, I'm in the shower again praying. I mean, y'all, this was a long journey. And I'm praying, and I get that picture again. It starts coming in my head of that kid on the ground, and that father standing there, and Jesus standing in authority, and it starts to move again. And Jesus reaches out his hand, right? Because that's what he does, right? He reaches down and he helps the kid stand up, right? So I'm expecting, okay, this is the Lord telling me my kid's going to find this healing, right? And so he reaches out and he starts raising somebody up off the ground, and it was me.
Oh, wow.
It was me. And I was like, are you kidding me? And the Lord was like, a part of you died when this started, and I'm raising you up. Powerful. So if we don't spend that time in prayer, right, we're missing out on what the Lord is going to tell us is true. And the Lord did raise me up. And it was at that point when I really started finding even more strength for this long journey, that he raised me up to a new life, and that my life here with my kids doesn't necessarily look like I thought it was going to look. But here we are, and I am stronger because of it. I've had people say, I don't know how you're putting one foot in front of the other. I don't know how you're creating new things and how you're thriving. And it's like, because the Lord is my strength, and my identity is not this situation. I have a life that is grounded in someone stronger and deeper who stands in authority over all of this. And so I can be both a parent who struggles and has fears and has my own anxieties about my kids' future. And I could also be a woman who is strong and who is capable and who is growing and who is thriving and who can be that advocate my kid needs and can be a voice to other people. So, the Lord is able to do so much with our struggles. Let him in, and there's nothing to be ashamed of if you're a parent who has a child that struggles.
Amen.
Susan, that is so powerful.
I love it. Absolutely.
Reminding you and me that the Lord stands in authority. And over all the things we're going through, the Lord stands in authority. Jesus stands in authority.
Well, Susan, we are, I don't even know how to wrap this thing up at this point. This has been so wonderful. You're going to be okay. That's the book. Highly recommend it. As you can see, just having a conversation with Susan, she has lived through this. This isn't just something that you pulled a bunch of information, that you've actually gone through very tough times and difficult conversations, and just wrestling with identity and all of this. And here's the deal: is kids can have issues that we can step into, and we need to step into. It doesn't define who we are, as Susan said, and this book can help you get there. But I will say this: if your child is truly struggling and you're just like I'm not sure in what else to do, you've got to reach out for help. We can help you find somebody. We can help your kid or your student just get connected to a counselor here locally. We would love to be able to do that for you and walk alongside with you. So you are not alone in this. Please do not be ashamed. Please believe your kid when they actually say that they have anxiety or depression. Don't walk away from that. Step into that in a very healthy way. And as a local church, we would love to help you do that if you're local here to Marietta. If you're not, please find a local church or local counselor that can help your student walk through this, because the faster you get there, the better for your student, and we'd love to be a part of that.
And we want to pray for you. Like, we want to be able to pray, not just to provide resources, but to be able to pray. And we have pastors and a pastoral care team that would pray for you. And our chapel's open every week to come and to pray. Our altar is open to pray, and we have people that will pray for you. And that's where the fight is in the prayer. So let someone pray for you.
Amen. So thanks for tuning in to Talk It Up. We are very committed to helping parents navigate the world of parenting in a biblical Christian way. And so we would love for you to connect with us on our next podcast. We have some amazing guests scheduled over the next few months that we'll bring to you as well. If you have questions, comments, just like to shoot us a note, you can always reach me by email. It's matt.lake@mtbethel.org. You can also post comments. If you're seeing this online, you can post some comments down below. We'd love to hear from you as well. Again, thank you for tuning in. We hope this is helpful, and we hope that this helps you as a parent navigate a tough world in the 21st century. Thank you.